slavery, abolish your lifestyle, and the Southerners are fighting it. There were a lot of people that realized that this relationship for them was a good idea and should go on. It was the common people that got on the bandwagon of anti-slavery and abolishment, because as you got into the 1840s, there were more and more religious groups, more and more revivalists that were traveling around. They were preaching things, and they would get on a popular subject such as slavery and abolishment of slavery and beat it to death, and they got paid a lot of money, and they would travel, but they stirred up this consciousness for this with the common individual. That is not what the common individual thinks doesn't make much difference. It's the money that's behind it that makes the difference. And in this case, the people in Europe, the money people in Europe, the merchants in the north, the Southerners in the south, got this idea that if by the Monroe Doctrine, if it's manifest destiny that the United States government can take everything west, and if they can't buy it, they can seize it, or they can go to war over it from coast to coast. If that's manifest destiny, why isn't it manifest destiny then to just go from here south and take everything, take whatever they wanted? But the federal government said, no, we're going west, we're not going south, that's Mexico, and so forth. The slave states said, we've got to go south, we need the soil. The federal government was unresponsive and said, no, when you get to the Mississippi River, that's where you stop. That would have ended the culture, the lifestyle, the economics, everything for the South. The whole culture would have come to a stop if this would have happened. In about 1832, it's reported that it began in Zanesville, Ohio, which is not exactly a southern state. It began in Zanesville, Ohio, that there was talk then of going south, seceding from the United States, all these southern states, getting out of the United States government, forming their own government, and saying it's manifest destiny, we go south. And the idea of the Golden Circle was taken, that if you put a divider in Havana, Cuba, which was to be the center or the headquarters for this whole thing, and stretch it out 16 degrees, not 16 degrees up here on the equator, all right, that everything within this circle would be slave and plantation oriented. So that meant that they would be taking all of the southern states with them, part of Virginia, part of Kentucky, part of Missouri, part of Texas, the entire east coast of Mexico down to Central America, and coming up to the northern tip of South America. They were going to take all of Cuba, the West Indies. All of this would be part of the circle, and it got to be called... Yes?
Do we know why 16 degrees was chosen?
That's a long explanation. There are a couple of reasons for it, but they wanted certain territory. Now, you will find some of this information coded in various books that they had. There will be references to Monterey, Texas, for example. And you scratch your head and say, why are they talking about Monterey, Texas? Monterey, Mexico. It doesn't seem to really relate to anything. Why would it be in one of their code books as a key word? Well, Monterey, Mexico is exactly 16 degrees, plus or minus a couple of minutes in there, but exactly 16 degrees from Havana, Cuba. And this was the area that they wanted. This would have been for them a very, very wealthy chunk of soil where they could have continued their operations for many, many generations. And in calling this something, it was called the Golden Circle. And the original members did not band together and say, hey, we're the Knights of the Golden Circle. They were considered to be the advocates of the Golden Circle principle, or the Golden Circle ideal, or the Golden Circle concept. It just got to be called that loosely. Sometime later, there was a fellow by the name of Bickley that got involved in it, and supposedly he was the founder of it. He wasn't the founder of it all. He tried to make some money off of it and enroll people into it for so much per head. That was not the real Knights of the Golden Circle. The whole group of businessmen and plantation owners loosely were Golden Circle advocates. And as things worsened, they literally tried to force the dissolution of the United States government. They wanted it to come to an end. And I referred before to, for example, the Lincoln-Douglas debates. Lincoln was a compromiser. He would have done anything to compromise between the South and the North so as not to divide the nation. Douglas I'm talking about. Lincoln just said, we're going to abolish slavery. He didn't say we'll give them equal rights. He said we'll abolish slavery, but they won't have the same rights. But that would have ended the plantation type of lifestyle and economy. Now, Lincoln really could not have won that election because Douglas was far more popular with the people as far as compromising instead of going to war. And the southern states made it very clear that if a Republican, any Republican, was elected into office, they were going to leave the United States of America. So Douglas was very popular. These advocates of the Golden Circle principle in no way could let Douglas get elected, because otherwise it would be another compromise. They would still be stuck at the Missouri River, and their lifestyle would come to an end with compromise. So that was an outrageous idea. The people within the Southern Democratic Party itself and the money people both in the North and in the South worked to undermine Douglas. This is a matter of history. Anybody can go to history books and find this. When you begin to correlate it with many books, you begin to get an idea of what really took place and why. Again, these people in the beginning did not have a formal name. Now, they worked to undermine Douglas. They did it. They caused a split in the party, many splits in the party, and it ended up that Lincoln went into office. North Carolina was waiting for that as the key thing in order to secede and the other states to follow. And they had no idea that this would lead to war. They believed that when they would secede, they could go on their merry way, like getting a divorce from somebody. You go on your way, and that's the end of it. And the North could do what it wanted. The South would take its manifest destiny and head for the Golden Circle. All right? They had no idea this would go to war. It did go to war. Secret organizations and secret groups band together, and you had many groups, and in general they've been called Knights of the Golden Circle or Confederate Secret Service. There are distinctions. There was Knights of the Iron Fist. There was another layer that was Knights of the White Camellia. There were many layers of operation within this whole group. They are nowadays grouped together, and we just call them Knights of the Golden Circle, but there are many factions of them all working for the same cause. Now, the money people behind it could pay to have work done. They could pay to put spies in Washington. They could pay to have espionage done against the government. The money was coming to fund this, not from the average citizen through taxation or whatever. It was coming from money people to keep this operation going. Knights of the Golden Circle during the war acted as a secondary secret service, and oftentimes the Confederate Secret Service would go to the Knights of the Golden Circle because they were better at doing this, better at secret plots and secret espionage, because they had been doing it since the 1830s, plotting to overthrow or plotting to take over their own government. More and more people wanted to do anything that they could help, or anything that they could do to help the South and help the Knights of the Golden Circle. And it became a problem now of organizing this into a working mass of individuals. So key people that were involved, particularly that were well-versed in the Masonic traditions, established a secondary, almost like a secondary Masonic group that paralleled it. The original Masonic group was very choosy about its members. They didn't invite any kind of riffraff in, and you had to be invited into the group.